So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths Pass paper of November 2023 Foundation, paper 1, which is a non-calculator paper. Now before we get started, just a little reminder that I'll include a link to the paper in the description below, and I'll also include a question breakdown so you can see which question refers to which topic in maths. And also include in the description a link to the 162 Maths contents page, which gives you easy access to the lessons as well as useful revision resources such as topic tests, audits and other exam paper walkthroughs. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1 says write down the value of 2 cubed. So 2 cubed is equal to 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 gives us 8. Then for question B it says work out 3.45 plus 2.07 minus 1.3. So the first thing we need to do here is work out this. So we're going to do 3.45 plus 2.07, making sure decimal points in the same location. Then we just add the numbers. So 5 plus 7 is 12. 1 plus 4 plus 0 is 5. And 3 plus 2 is 5. So taking this answer, we've got 5.52. And we need to subtract now 1.3. And again, making sure your decimal point is in the right place. Now to help, you might put a 0 in the empty gap. So taking away, we've got 2 take away 0, which is 2, 5 take away 3, which is 2, and 5 take away 1, which is 4. Put the decimal point back in, and we get an answer of 4.22. Moving on to question 2, it says here is a triangle. Measure the length of side x. Now for this, what we need to do, now depending on whether your printing of this question is on A5 or A4. If it's on A5, you should end up with an answer of around about 6.5 millimeters. Well, actually, I've just checked it's in millimeters, not centimeters. So we need to correct that. So that's going to be 6.5 centimeters, which is 65 millimeters. Then says measure the angle of angle Y. Now, regardless of your photocopying, this angle Y should be the same as long as the paper's not been changed. And it should be around about 33 degrees. And again, they will probably accept any answer between 32 and 34 degrees. But again, check the mark scheme to see whether they accept it. Moving on to question 3, it says write down a number in the box to make this statement correct. Now for this, all you need to write here is any decimal number that is bigger than 3.7. So absolutely any number. So again, don't go too crazy, just write down the number that's bigger than 3.7. So I'm going to go for 5. Moving on to question 4, it says here is the number line, which number is at A? Now again, to work out the difference, if we take the interval, so here we've got a difference of 1, we divide that by the number of gaps that we've got. It's going from number of steps, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So every little dash is representing a quarter, which is 0.25. So that's going to be 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and then 1, 1.25, and there we've got our answer. It then says here is a number line. What is the number at B? So again, measuring the difference between the numbers. So here we've got 1,000. Looking at the steps to get from one to the other, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we divide 100 by 5 and we get 200, which means every little dash is going up by 200. So starting with minus 4,000, that's going to be minus 3,800, minus 3,600, and minus 3,400, and there is our answer. Moving on to question 5, it says here is a shape. It says write down the order of rotation symmetry of this shape. And again, all we need to do here is you can see it's not a regular shape, but we have got a symmetrical shape. So it's just a case of looking at the lines of symmetry, and the correct answer you should have is 10. Moving on to question 6, it says simplify fully. So here we're collecting the like terms, and as you can see we've got a plus a plus a plus a, which collecting and simplifying gives us 4a. It then says factorize 5a plus 10. So what goes into both 5a and 10? Well, that's going to be 5. And then setting up a bracket, what do we need to multiply 5 to get 5a? Well, I need to multiply it by a. Stick the plus there, and what do we need to multiply 5 to get 10? Well, I need 2. So the answer then is 5 lots of a plus 2. It then says multiply out 4 lots of 10 minus x. So using the loops, we've got 4 times 10, which is 40, minus 4 times x, which is 4x. Moving on to question 7, it says Ollie and Rachel run a marathon race. Ollie starts the race at 9:15 a.m. and he takes 3 3¾ hours to finish the race. What time does he finish? Well, the key thing you need to remember here is that 3 3/4 hours is equivalent to 3 hours and 45 minutes. So all we need to do is add 9:15 plus 3 hours, which gives us 12:15. Then we just need to add the 45 minutes, which takes us up to 1 o'clock. So either you can write your answer as a 24-hour clock of 1300 or 1 p.m. Moving on to question B, it says Rachel has a target time of 4 hours and 10 minutes. She has been running for 186 minutes. To meet her target, how many minutes does she have left to finish the race? So for this, we need to establish that 186 minutes is equivalent to 3 hours and 6 minutes. Now, from this, what we then need to then say is she's got a target time of 4 hours 10. So then we need to then subtract 3 hours 6 minutes from 4 hours and 10 minutes, which therefore leaves, now again, it's not a straightforward calculation because remember time is calculated in lots of 60. So here I've got 4 minutes left and here I'm going to have 1 hour. So how much time do we have left? And we need to give our answer in minutes. 1 hour is equivalent to 60 minutes. So 60 plus 4 minutes gives us an answer of 64 minutes. Now moving on to question 8, it says Samira uses a tally chart to record the vehicles passing her school. Here is her chart with the tallies. Each 5-bar gate represents 5 vehicles. It says Samira says that the number of cars is more than the total of the other vehicles because the cars have 4 5-bar gates and the others only have 3 5-bar gates. Is she correct? And so for this, what we need to do now with the yes no, I always prefer, I don't know why they do it this way, I think they should write the supporting, give you space to work it out, and then answer yes or no, so that you're using your choice of yes no based on the working out you're doing. But either way, we digress. So what we want to do here is first of all add up the total tallies. So for cars we've got 23, for buses we've got 12, for van we've got 9, and for lorries we've got 4. So for this, what we need to do is first of all we know that the cars total is equal to 23, and the other vehicles, if we add up all of the other numbers, is going to be 12 plus 9 plus 4, which comes up to a total of 25. So is she correct? No. And the reason for this, so as 25 is bigger than 23, we can explain that in words, she is wrong. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Then for B, it then asks us to draw a bar chart to represent the date of the tally chart. So if I just zoom out, we can see what the tally chart should look like. Now again, with this, it's reset. So let's just go up here. Now what you should find is that you need to label the bars. So we've got cars, we've got bus, we've got van, and we've got lorries. Now you need to make sure that you've got gaps between the bars. You need to make sure that equal width bars. And you should have the correct heights. Oh, I don't know what's happening there. Correct heights. And you should have labels as well. So again, if you want to write cars, buses, vans and lorries, you can do, or if you just want to use the first letter, as long as you're establishing which bar refers to which vehicle, then that should be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 9, it says put the whole numbers 1 to 12 in the boxes to make the calculations correct. Only use each number once. Now for this, this might take you a while, and we just need to make sure that the sums are correct and that we're only using each of the numbers once. Now the correct combination you should have for the first one is 1, 2 and 4. For 32 we should have 9, 11 and 12. For 15 we want 3, 5 and 7. You can have these numbers in absolutely any order. We've got 6, 8 and 10. Now one possible technique I would use is to first of all write down the numbers you've got, and then starting with the biggest one, use the biggest numbers to make 32. So I can use 11 and 12 because they're my two biggest numbers, and I need 9 to go over. So once I've done that, I can tick those numbers off. Then starting with 24, I use the biggest numbers I've got, so I've got 10 and 8 because 9's already gone. And then for the next number, for it to add up to 24, I need 6. And then do the same for the next one, which is 15. So my next highest number is 7, and then 5, and then I've got the remaining number of 3, so that cancels out. And then as you can see, for the last one of 7, those 3 do add up to 7, and that's the general method I will use for that. Moving on to question 10, it says that a regular pentagon has a perimeter of 100 millimeters. A shape is made by joining a square to the pentagon. Work out the perimeter of the shape. Now the perimeter is the distance around the shape. So here we've got a pentagon which has 5 sides. So each side is going to be 100 divided by 5, which is 20 millimeters. So every length here is 20. Now because it says we've got a square, the properties of a square is that all the sides are the same. So if this is 20, that's 20, that's 20, that's 20. This side, the dashed line must also be 20, and because it's a square, it means that these will be 20 as well. So to work out the perimeter, all I need to do is add those 20s together, in which I've got 7 of them. So it's just going to be 7 times 20, or 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20, which gives us an answer of 140 centimeters. Or millimeters, centimeters I would say. No, millimeters. And so we just correct those units. I think the units are actually written down for us in the answer spot, which they are, yeah. So it'll be 140 millimeters. Moving on to question 11, slight typo there, so let's just stick a question 11 there. So it says, last week Eric worked for 10 hours. He paid no tax and received £90. Sounds a bit dodgy, but there is a certain amount in which you would not pay tax. It says this week Eric works 15 hours. He assumes he will be paid the same rate and pay no tax. How much does he expect to receive this week? So for this, he's working at £9 an hour. So let's first of all get a pen out. So here we've got £9 per hour, and he's working for 15 hours. So then what we then need to do is 15 times 9, and again you can use that multiplication any which way you want, in which you should have an answer of £135. Then for B, it says, in fact, this week Eric is paid an extra 50p per hour and pays £8.90 in tax. What does this tell you about the amount he receives? And again, we need to show our working out. So for this, let's have a look at what he gets. Now, again, a couple of ways in which we could do this. So here he's getting £9.50 an hour. So then to work out the total pay, it's going to be 15 times 9.5. And again, you can work that out in any which way of multiplying with decimals. So here we've got, again, let's just go through this. So I've got 10 and 5 and 9 and 0.5. So 9 times 10 is 90 plus 45. That's going to be 5, and that's £2.50. So then adding up each of those amounts, we get a total of and that's going to be 142 £8.50. Then that's before tax. So we then need to take away £8.90. So doing that calculation, that's going to be 0. I need to borrow 1 off there. So that then becomes a 12 to become 11 to become 15. So that's going to be a 6. That's going to be a 3. Then we've got 3, 1. So his takeaway pay is going to be £133.60. So the question is it more or less than what he expected? Well, if I go back to part A, the answer was 135. We've now got 133.60, so he's actually going to be paid less. Moving on to question 12, it says that complete the list of the 6 numbers so that the mode is 9, the median is 13, and the range is 11. Well, if the mode is 9, that means we've got to have at least 2 9s in our set of numbers. So here we've got a 9. It then says the median is 13. Now, for this, to work this one out, we then got to work out, well, if we can put 13 there, but the median is going to be here. So if I just write 13 here, now the difference between 9 and 13 is plus 4. So that means to get from this number to this number, I also then need to add 4. So that then becomes 17. So that gives us a median of 13. However, as you can see now, we've got 2 17s and 2 9s. Now it says that the mode needs to be 9, so that means I need to add another 9. And then the last bit of information tells me that range is 11. So to get the range, I take away the biggest number, take away from the smallest. So the difference between 9 and the last number needs to be plus 11. So 9 plus 11 gives me 20. So the missing numbers are 9, 9, 17 and 20. Moving on to question 13, it says that a shape has an even number of sides, more sides than a square, fewer sides than a decagon. Write down a name of one shape that this could be. So a square has got 4 sides. A decagon has got 10 sides. So the only even numbers I've got are, so the only even numbers left is going to be 6 or 8. Now a 6-sided shape is a hexagon, and an 8-sided shape is going to be an octagon. So any of those two, definitely don't write both, just write one or the other, but that should be good enough to get the 1 mark. For question 14, it says on the grid, draw a graph of y equals 2x minus 6 for the values of minus 2 to 5. So for this, what we need to do first is draw a table of values. So I've got x and I've got y. And I'm just going to use 3 simple small numbers. So I've got 0, I've got 1, and I've got 2. So when x is 0, I've got y equals 2 times 0 minus 6, which leaves me with an answer of minus 6. Then when x is 1, I've got y equals 2 times 1 minus 6. So 2 times 1 is 2, minus 6 gives me minus 4. And then when x is 2, I've got y equals 2 times 2 minus 6, that's 4 minus 6, which is minus 2. Then all that's left for me to then do is plot this coordinate, and this coordinate. So here I've got 0 minus 6, so 0 minus 6 is here, at 1 it's at minus 4, and at 2 it's at minus 2. So then all that's left for me to then do is draw a straight line through those points. So if you just bear with me, I'll try and draw that as accurately as I can. And again, with this, you always want to make sure that you're going past 5 and you're going past x equals 2. So I would generally, rule of thumb is recommend students to always go to the edge of your graph just to make sure that we've got those points. And again, make sure that you are connecting those coordinates with a straight line, making sure it goes to the edge of that squared grid. Moving on to question 15, it says work out 5/8 plus 13 over 16. So again, when we're adding fractions, remember we need to get the same common denominator. So I've got 5 over 8 plus 13 over 16. My common denominator or common multiple of 8 and 16 is 16. So I multiply this second fraction by 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. So I've got 10 over 16. 13 over 16 stays the same. So I'm left with then 10 plus 13, which is 23 over 16. How many 16s go into 23? That's going to be 1. Remainder 7. And I'm dividing by 16. 7 over 16 can't be simplified. So my final answer is 1/7 and over 16. Or 1 7/16, I should say. Moving on to question 16, it says, here is a triangle on a grid. The triangle is reflected on a vertical line. The two vertices of the reflected triangle are 7, 3 and 7, 7. And it then says, what are the coordinates of the other vertex of the reflected triangle? So if I just zoom out so we can see that question in all its entirety, and as you can see, it's reset. So let's just go from there. So plotting the points, I've got 7, 3, which is here, 7, 7, which is here. So the remaining point needs to be 3 to the right, so it's going to be here. So I just need to know what coordinate that is, and that is at 10, 3. It then says for B, what is the equation of the reflection line? Well, the reflection line is here. It's a vertical line going through 6. So then the equation is going to be x equals 6. Moving on to question 17, let's just zoom in so we can see it a bit more clear on the screen. It says that Ali has £80. He gives 9/10 of his money to Joe. Joe then spends 2/3 of his money and gives it back to Ali. What fraction of the £80 does Ali have now? Give your answer in its simplest form. So for this, let's have a look at what we need to do. So Ali to Joe. And he's giving 9/10 of his money. So we need to do 80 multiplied by 9 over 10. So that then becomes, and again, remembering how we do this, we multiply, well, we divide by 10 times by the top. So 80 divided by 10 is 8 times 9 is £72. So that's how much money that Ali gives to Joe. So then it then says that Joe spends 2/3 of his money. So 2/3 of 72. So again, we divide by the bottom times by the top. So 72 divided by 3 gives us 2, remainder 1, which gives 4. Times that by 2 gives us 48. So he spends £48. So the change for Ali is going to be 72 minus 48, which gives us an answer of £24. Now, if you're still with me, it then says that Ali, he then gives the rest back to Ali. So Joe gives Ali £24. Now the question's asking what fraction of the £80 does Ali have now? So Ali had originally, well, he's got £8 left. So this is Joe amount and Ali therefore has £8. So I need to add these two amounts up together. So it's 8 plus 24, which is £32. And then we just need to work that out as a fraction. So it's going to be 32 over 18. If we simplify that, we get 16 over 40, which gives us 4 over 10, which gives us 2 over 5. And so my answer then, in its simplest form, is 2 over 5. Moving on to question 18, it says work out, and then we've got the square root of 100 minus 4 lots of 2 squared plus 5. So we need to use a bit of bid maths to work this out. So first of all, working out with the bracket and the power, we get 100 minus 4 lots of 4 plus 5. And then we then have 100 minus 4 lots of 9. Then we've got 100 minus 4 times 9, which is 36. And then we do 100 take away 36, which is the square root of 64. And we know what the square root of 64 is. It's 8. Then moving on to question 19, it says, what does a and then we've got uniform B, represent in the probability of A uniform B, circle your answer. And so for this, we need to circle that it means A or B or both. Then for question 20, it says Salma is raising money for charity. Her mum says, whatever you raise, I will add double that amount. Show this information by drawing a graph on each of the grid. So for this, we got that the amount added by the mum and the amount raised by Salma. And as you can see that the scales on each of the horizontal and vertical axes are different. So if Salma raises £20, then their mum's going to give £40, and that's represented by one small square. And if we pick another value, if Salma raises £60, mum's going to give her 120. If she raises £100, then a mum will give her £200. So that's going to be there. And then all that's left for us to then do is to draw a line through those points. So what you should find to check your answer is to make sure that at 100, it's at 200 for the amount that mum gives, and it does go through the origin, so it does go through 0, 0. So your line should look like this. So it goes through at 0, 0, and at 100 and 200. Then for the second graph, so notice here it says that the total amount raised and Salma. So if Salma raises £100, so if she raises 0, she'll get 0. So that's where that graph starts. If Salma raises £100 and mum gives £200, so a total of £300. So when it's 100, it's at 300. So 100, 300 is there. Then all that's left for me to then do is draw a line connecting those 2 points. If you want to do more points, that's absolutely fine. But I would say not necessary because the marks are given for the correct line. And so you should have something that looks like this. And again, starting from the origin. And there we go. Then for question 21, it says write down the value of cos 90. Now this is an exact value of trig, so this one is just going to be 0. Moving on to question 22, it says work out the value of 8 squared times 8 divided by 8 to the power of 9 divided by 8 to the power of 5. Now, depending on your copying of your question, let me write down what the question looks like a little bit bigger. And so for this, it's a case of using indices. Now 8 just by itself is 8 to the power of 1. So when we're multiplying, we add the powers. And when we're dividing, we take away the powers. So that's going to be 8 to the power of 3 divided by 8 to the power of 4. Taking away 8 by 3. So that's going to be 3 minus 4, which gives us 8 to the power of minus 1, which gives me 1 divided by 8. Now the question asks us to give our answer as a decimal. So we just need to do 8 divided by 1. And if we stick a few decimal numbers in there, because we know it's going to go into it, we've got 8 goes into 1 0 times, carry the 1. 8 goes into 10 once, remainder 2. 8 goes into 20 twice, remainder 4. And 8 goes into 40 5 times. And so the top of my bus stop is the answer. So as a decimal, the answer is 0.125. For question 23, it says write down an equation that's parallel to y equals 3x plus 1. So what you just need to write is y equals, not y plus, let me get rid of that. So it's going to be y equals 3x and then plus any number. And again, you can write any number, including 0, that is not plus 1. So you can write any number that's not plus 1 and that'll be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 24, it says a music company releases 10 albums. The scatter graph shows for each album the number of downloads on the first day and the number of CDs sold on the first day. The line of best fit is drawn on the scatter diagram, as you can see. And for A, it says the scatter diagram shows positive correlation. Describe the relationship between the number of downloads and the number of CDs sold. So for this, let me just zoom out, also slowly, and let's get it all on the screen. So we've got it just there. And what you want to say for describing a positive relationship is something along the lines of as the number of downloads increase, so does the number of CDs sold. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine to describe our positive correlation. Then for B, it then says, we can zoom back in, and for this it says that the company earns £2.50 for each download and £3 for each CD sold. The company releases another album. On the first day it has 9,000 downloads. Estimate the total amount the company earns from downloads and CDs of that album that day. So for this, what you want to do is know that 9,000 downloads at £2.50 a download is going to be, so the calculation for this I then need to do is 9,000 multiplied by 2.5. Now, depending on how you want to multiply and how you do multiply that, you should have an answer of 22,500. Now, if I've got 9,000 downloads, so let's just go back to the scatter diagram. So 9,000 downloads is here. That's going to come up to that point there, and that gives me around about 5,400 CDs sold. So then for the CDs, we've got 5,400 CDs sold at, and it's going to be £3 each. So then the calculation I then need to do for this is going to be 5,400 multiplied by 3, in which that should give you an answer of 16,200. So all that's left for me to do is to add these two amounts up. So the total amount is going to be 22500 plus 16200. Add them together and I get an answer of 38700, so 38,700. Moving on to question 25, it says that 70% of, let's just go back to that question. So it says 70% of a number is 350. Work out 120% of that number. Well, for this, if we know that 70% equals 350, then 10% is going to be that divided by 7. So 350 divided by 7 gives me 50. So that then means that 100%, so that's that number times 10, is going to be 500. And then 120% is going to be 100% plus 10% plus 10%, which gives me a grand total of 600. Moving on to question 26, says here is a graph of y equals 0.5x squared minus 6x plus 12. And the question is asking us use the graph to estimate the solutions of the answer. Now the solutions of this are basically where the curve crosses the x-axis. So this number here, I'm going to say, is around about 2.5. And this number here, I'm going to say, is 9.5. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine, but definitely mark it on the graph and then just write down the values that you believe that they are. Moving on to question 27, it says shape A is a circle with a radius of root 17 over 2. Shape B is a sector of a circle with a radius of 5 centimeters. And the question is asking us which shape has the greater area. Now the area of a circle, remember the formulas, is pi r squared. And the radius of a sector is theta over 360 multiplied by pi r squared. So using these two formulas, what we can then do is work out the area of the two respective shapes. So the area of the circle is equal to pi times root 17 over 2 squared. Now squaring each of those values, so I've got pi multiplied by, now root 17 times squared is the root and the square cancel out, so that's just going to be 17, and 2 squared is 14, so that leaves me with an answer of 17 over 4 pi. Then to work out the area of the sector, let's just use different colour pen. So the area of the sector, substituting values in, I've got theta, which is 60 over 360 multiplied by the radius, which is 5, so that's 25 times pi. So then simplifying all of this, I've got 25 times 60, which is, let's just quickly work that out. So I've got 25 multiplied by 60, so that's going to be 0, and then 0, 3, and then that's going to be 1500. So it's 1500 over 360 pi. That then simplifies, so I can take a 0, so that becomes 150 over 36 pi. Again, can simplify that, so then all that's left for me to then do is now get a common denominator. So I could divide by 2 again, or I could divide by 3, so that then becomes divide by 9. Will that work? Yep. So I could divide by 9. So no, let's just try and get them the same. So here we've got, if I multiply this fraction by 9 over 9, I've got 17 times 9, so that's going to be 3, 6, and then 9, 15, so it's 153 over 36 pi. So all that's left for me to then do is compare this fraction with this fraction. Which one's bigger? As you can see, this one's bigger because the numerator is bigger. So here, as 153 over 36 pi is greater than 150 over 36 pi, the area of the circle is bigger. And there we go. Moving on to question 28, it says factorise x squared plus 2x minus 24. So setting up our double brackets, we want to think of two numbers that multiply together to give me minus 24, and two numbers that add together to give us positive 2. And the two numbers you need to be thinking of is positive 6 and minus 4. And there is my factorisation. Then for our last question, it says write 2 times 10 to the power 3 as an ordinary number. So that's just going to be 2000. And then finally for B, it says simplify 2 times 10 to the power 3 to 5 times 10 to the power minus 1. Give your answer in the form of n to 1. So this, as we've got, is our answer from part A, which is 2000. And 5 times 10 to the power of minus 1 is 0.5. And so here what we need to do then is we need to convert this into a 1. So I times that by 2, so which means I times the left hand side by 2 as well. So that becomes 4000. So the answer then is 4000 to 1. And there we go.